And welcome back friends, and welcome to Biology Nirmal. And in this video tutorial I am going to describe you about the cardiac cycle. Okay, and before going to discuss about the cardiac cycle, first of all we should know that what is actually heartbeat. Okay, so heartbeat means simply systole plus diastole of the heart. So systole plus diastole of the heart, and this is actually called as the heartbeat. Clear? And the 75 beat usually occurred in every 60 seconds. Clear? So 75 beat occurs in 60 seconds. Actually the heart rate is actually 75 per minute, so that the 75 beat is actually occurred in 60 seconds. So one beat is actually occurred 60 by 75 is equal to 0.8 second. Okay, so the event and which is actually repeated in every 0.8 second, and this is actually called as the cardiac cycle. And you can see that in the cardiac cycle there are two major events. One is the auricular event and another is the ventricular event. And the auricular event may be divided into the auricular systole and the auricular diastole. Okay, and the auricular systole, this will take 0.1 second, and auricular diastole 0.7 second, and ventricular event, ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole, and the ventricular systole actually take 0.3 second and ventricular diastole 0.5 second. And now I just explain in every event during this time, actually the event which is actually occurred during the auricular systole and the auricular diastole, and ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole. So first of all I shall tell you about the auricular systole. Okay, so systole means simply contraction actually, and since SA node is actually present in the right auricle, so that first of all the right auricle is actually contracted and then left auricle. Clear? So after the filling of the blood by the right auricle and the left auricle actually, and the right auricle is actually filled up by the blood superior and the inferior vena cava, and the left auricle filled by the blood by pulmonary vein. So after filling of the blood, the auricular systole is actually occurred, and this is the contraction of the heart muscle actually, and by this contraction the blood actually move from auricle towards the ventricle. Clear? So that during the systole the blood actually move from the auricle to the ventricle, and this systole event is actually take 0.1 second. So in first 0.05 second 90% of the heart muscle will be contracted, and this is called the dynamic phase, and this is the huge contraction, and in the next 0.05 second 30% of the heart muscle will be contracted, and this is called as the dynamic phase. Clear? And just after the contraction of the auricle or the systole of the auricle, next the auricular diastole is actually occurred, and during the diastole the auricular pressure actually becomes very less. You can see that the auricular pressure becomes very less, so that the blood actually enters from superior and the inferior vena cava. By superior and the inferior vena cava the deoxygenated blood actually enters, and oxygenated blood actually enters through the pulmonary vein. So by the auricular diastole the blood is actually filled into the auricle. Okay, so auricle is actually filled up by the blood during the time of the diastole. Clear? And the next event which is actually very important, and this is the ventricular event, and the ventricular event is also can be divided into the ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole actually, and the ventricular systole will take 0.3 second and ventricular diastole will take 0.5 second. And now I am going to tell you that what will be occurred during this ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole event. Okay, and so the ventricular systole actually, and suppose this is the heart and here is the ventricle. Okay, and during the time of the ventricular systole the ventricle will be contracted. Clear? So ventricle will be contracted during the time of ventricular systole actually, and there are presence, and here is presence of pulmonary artery. So this is pulmonary artery, and here is the arch of aorta, and here is aortic arch or arch of aorta. Clear? And there are present a semilunar valve, so that in this artery here there are present semilunar valves. So there is present of semilunar valve actually. I'm writing here. So these are the semilunar valve. So these are semilunar valve, and here tricuspid valve, and here bicuspid valve. Okay, and here bicuspid valve. Clear? So during the time of the systole, just after filling of the blood, first of all, what will be occurred? And this is the contraction of the ventricle. So ventricle contracted, and due to this contraction, okay, so blood can be entered from the ventricle to the auricle, but this should not be permitted, so that the bicuspid and tricuspid valve, bicuspid and tricuspid valve will be closed, and this make a sound, and this sound is actually called as the first heart sound. Okay, and this will actually listen just a loud type of sound is actually formed, so that just at the beginning of the ventricular systole, bicuspid and the tricuspid valve will be contracted, will be closed actually, and this make a sound, and this is called the first heart sound. And during this time the next stage is the isometric muscle contraction. This is very, very important actually, so that the bicuspid and tricuspid valve closed, and semilunar valve, and here is the semilunar valve, and this semilunar valve also remains closed. So semilunar valve of artery also closed. Okay, and so that so heart actually contracted as a closed heart, contracted as a closed chamber, and this is called isometric muscle contraction. And this contraction as a closed chamber is actually, it will take 0.05 second. Okay, so this will take 0.05 second, and the next step is that the semilunar valve and semilunar valve open. So semilunar valve open. Why this semilunar valve will be open? Because the ventricular pressure slowly increased than that of the artery, and so that the semilunar valve will be opened, and the blood actually ejected from ventricle. Okay, and because this semilunar valve actually is opened, and so that the blood actually come out from this ventricle, and the blood actually ejected. Okay, and this ejection will be two type. One is the rapid ejection, and another is the slow ejection. Clear? So in the first 0.11 second, rapid ejection is actually occurred, and in the next 0.14 second, slow ejection is actually occurred. And by the process of the ejection, the blood, the oxygenated blood is actually removed from this left auricle through the arch of aorta and throughout the body, and from the right ventricle, and through the pulmonary artery and towards the lungs, so that this is actually called as the blood ejection. So during the time of the ventricular systole, the ventricle will be contracted, and so the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve will make a sound, and this will be actually closed, and this is actually called as the first heart sound. And during this time also the semilunar valve also remains closed, and so that the heart will be contracted as a closed chamber, and this is called as the isometric muscle contraction. Okay, and this actually lasting for 0.05 second, and next the semilunar valve will be opened because the ventricular pressure slowly increased, and show that the blood actually ejected from the ventricle. And the first is the rapid ejection ejected from the ventricle through the pulmonary artery and the arch of aorta, and the first is the rapid ejection, and which the duration of the rapid ejection is 0.11 second, and the duration of the slow ejection is 0.14 second. And the next event of the cardiac cycle is the ventricular diastole, and this will take 0.5 second. So ventricular diastole is 0.5 second. Clear? And this ventricular diastole, and during the time of the ventricular diastole, suppose this is the heart again. I am just again drawing the heart, and during the time of the ventricular diastole, the ventricular pressure will be lower. So there are presence of pulmonary artery, and here is arch of aorta. Okay, and here is the semilunar valve and semilunar valve. Here is the semilunar valve, and here the bicuspid and tricuspid valve. So bicuspid valve, and here is tricuspid valve. Clear? And and this ventricular diastole, the first phase is the protodiastolic phase. Okay, protodiastolic phase. And due to the diastole, the ventricular pressure will be dropped, so that the ventricular pressure will be less than aortic artery, and so that this blood is actually the blood from that of the artery tends to come towards the ventricle, and this will make the closing of the semilunar valve. So the semilunar valve will be closed. So semilunar valve will be closed, and this actually make a sound. This is called second heart sound, and this listen just like the dove sound. Okay, and this is called the protodiastolic phase, and this protodiastolic phase lasting for 0.04 second. Okay, and show that during this time the semilunar valve and the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve all remains closed, so that the heart actually isometric, so that the heart actually relaxed as a closed chamber, and this is called isometric muscle relaxation. Okay, and this will take about the 0.08 second. So heart relaxed as closed chamber, relaxed as closed chamber. Okay, and then which is so this is the first phase, second phase, and the third phase, and bicuspid valve and tricuspid valve open, and so that blood actually come from the auricle towards the ventricle, so that blood actually come from the auricle towards the ventricle, and this is actually called as the filling phase. So open, so blood come from auricle towards ventricle. Okay, towards ventricle, and this is called as the filling phase. Okay, and this is called the filling phase. Actually, the blood is actually filled into the ventricle, and the first is the first rapid filling phase, and this filling phase can be divided into the three phases. One is the first rapid filling phase. Okay, and this will take 0.167 second, and during this 0.167 second, blood actually come from the auricle towards the ventricle, and this actually hit the ventricular valve, and this make a sound, and this is called the third heart sound. Okay, And the next is the slow filling phase. Slow filling phase, and this will take 0.113 second. 113 second, and again the filling phase will be rapid, and this is called the second rapid filling phase. Okay, and this will take 0.1 second. So again, blood actually come from the auricle to the ventricle, and this actually hit the ventricular wall, and this make again a very low sound, and this is actually called as the fourth heart sound. Okay, so this is make a fourth heart sound. So that's it, guys, and this is about the cardiac cycle. And now let us sum up about the total event. Actually, the cardiac cycle can be divided into the auricular event and the ventricular event, and the auricular event again can be systole and the diastole, and the dynamic phase and dynamic phase in the systole, and the diastole is actually take up 0.7 second, and the ventricular event is the ventricular systole and the ventricular diastole. And in the ventricular systole, isometric muscle contraction, and during this time the ventricle is actually contracted as a closed chamber. And next is the ejection. Actually, blood come from the ventricle to the body and into the lungs, and first is the rapid ejection, and the next one is the slow ejection, and this will take rapid ejection is actually take 0.11 second, and slow ejection will take 0.145 second. And next is the diastolic phase, and first of all is the protodiastolic phase, and during the time of the protodiastolic phase the semilunar valve actually closed, and this will actually make a sound, and this is called as the second heart sound. And next in the 0.08 second the heart actually relaxed as a closed chamber, and this is called the isometric muscle relaxation. And the next is the ventricular pressure becomes very less than the auricular pressure, so that the blood actually come from the auricle towards the ventricle, and this make a sound. And the first and this is actually called as the filling phase, and the first is actually rapidly filling of the blood into the ventricle is actually occurred, and this actually make the third heart sound, because the blood actually hit the ventricular wall when is actually entering from the auricle towards the ventricle. And next is the slow filling phase, and the last one is the second rapid filling phase, and this will take 0.1 second, and this make actually fourth heart sound. So that's it, guys. And in the cardiac cycle you should know that the heart sound and which time and when this heart sound is actually occurred, and isometric muscle contraction and isometric muscle relaxation's definition, and these all are actually important.